Hello, everybody. This is Lee at Fresh Astrology. How are you? So we're in the midst of the holiday season, and I hope everybody's doing okay. Um, Sometimes the holidays are good for people, and for some people, and then sometimes some seasons are just not so great. So wherever you are, you're okay. You're not supposed to be any other way than what you are. And astrology actually supports this heavily. You're supposed to be you. Now, of course, there are things like goals and self-growth and trying to uncover your purpose and follow purpose. And, there are things in life that we want to do, but there's also this space of being. And so we're going to talk about this week in the astrology and this idea of outward versus inward. It's just a larger concept. It may sound overly simplistic, but there's a lot of wisdom to it. At this time of year, no matter what hemisphere you're in, the North Pole itself is pointed. It's like away from the sun, like for its furthest amount of away. I want to say that from the sun. And there's probably a much better way to say that. You can tell me in the comments if you want. But it's pointing away from the sun. So even though we have this difference between the hemispheres, we have the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, which experience different seasons, because when the North Pole is tilted away from the sun, everything in the northern hemisphere goes into shorter and shorter days. And then as everything rotates back, the days get longer in the northern hemisphere. But what's happening in the southern hemisphere is the opposite of that. This is their summer. And or whatever season it is for them is warmer. And it's the opposite of our cycle in terms of our cycle with the sun. But the North Pole is the North Pole, and it has a lot of meaning. It's called true north. And you can derive, like, humans could have just as easily have decided that the South Pole they could have called it north and then called that true north. But as a species, we've decided to call the North Pole true north and used the North Pole as kind of a guiding principle. And it's also been like this quest to go find it, to, plant a flag in it. It has this sense of importance to us. And so let's talk about that. Like, as we approach the solstice this week, when the North Pole will be pointed away from the sun, and at a point in its cycle where, it's kind of at its apex and then it'll move back. What goes on for us? How is that meaningful for us? We don't talk about it as much in astrology, but it does have some importance. So just think about the phrase true north for you. What does that mean to you? What does true north mean to you? What do you think it means in general? I think it means, I use this in coaching all the time. And in fact, Martha Beck, who is my mentor, and I went through her coaching program, uses the concept of true north a lot. And in fact uses the stars and navigating by the stars, not so much astrology, but actual navigation, like ocean navigation, as a metaphor for her coaching principles. So true north to me, from a coaching perspective, means that one goes inside oneself. And coaching has a whole crate full of tools that you can use that help you go inside yourself, to discover what your own true north is. And at this time of year, true north on our planet is stationed at its furthest point from the sun, meaning it's in the dark. And therefore, there's this insinuation, metaphorically, that it's more undiscoverable. Or if one were to discover true north right now, one would have to develop stronger instincts for it because it's more in the dark. And this is why there's this idea of the celebration of light. No matter where you live on the planet, there's this idea of the celebration of the light. And it could be a metaphorical dark and a metaphorical search for the light. So some people are having a metaphorical season of darkness, no matter where. You could live anywhere. You could surround yourself by sun lamps and be in a metaphorical time of darkness. And it's a part of our, human cycle to be in this metaphorical darkness and to experience it. And we also have a metaphorical season of light. And it's important for us to, understand how to experience that, and that both are important. And so back to this true north thing. So in coaching, I know very well that the best place, and this is a part of religion, all religions is, it's a part of the best part of the religion. There's the man-made part of the religion where there's this idea of power and having power over people and obeying rules. That's kind of the man-made part of religion. But then the part that seems to be really universal is this idea of finding counsel within. And different religions and practices around the world throughout time have sought to develop that internal compass and finding your own personal true north. And how do you do that? And usually there's a set of systems. Like, we can always kind of spontaneously find it. And there's even this in reality on our planet, in the science community, there's this thing called spontaneous true north. It's a real thing because our North Pole actually wobbles. It moves and it's not consistent, and there can be a spontaneous true north, which I love as a metaphor for us because there is something kind of spontaneous about our own true north. Our own true north can shift, just like our North Pole, which is our land. Well, it's not really land-based. In fact, we can go further and study what is the North Pole in reality. It's in the middle of a very deep part of the ocean. And there can be ice flows moving over it, but it's actually in deep, deep ocean, deep water. And again, that suggests more the subconscious and unconscious mind. And so this time of year exists as a time when we go inward, when we're supposed to use our internal compass and use the depths of emotion, intuition, our inner knowing. It is a spiritual time. And however you understand spirituality, maybe for you, it's just being outside in nature, maybe learning is your spirituality, being in academia, maybe a hobby feels like spirituality to you. But what happens when you're engrossed in a hobby, or if you have a love of learning and you're exploring knowledge and reading and absorbing information, there's this kind of flow or zone you get into that does take you more inward, where your instincts come out and your left brain goes more quiet. And so during this week, when the North Pole, when true north is pointed away from the sun, away from the light, and is more in darkness, it's a really good time to do whatever you do that quiets your mind. And some people just really don't want to sit and be quiet. That's hard for people. But usually when I talk to people like that, there's something that, if you're one of them, there's something you like to do that takes you into that zone, into that place where your mind goes quiet. Maybe for you, it's exercise. But, it's not the thing that makes you go into the zone if you've got your earbuds in and you're listening to the news or a podcast, no matter how great it is. it's not, if you've got a if you're on a machine and there's a TV screen in front of you, that's not the zone. The zone is a time when you're not, pinned to a screen or, to something through your, sound through your earbuds. That's not the zone. So if it is exercise, try doing it without the other stimulation, because then you really see, and this is why it can be uncomfortable for people. People try really hard sometimes to just escape their thoughts and emotions. But this is a time of year when that's really appropriate to not escape your emotions. It's appropriate to go into the zone of, call it the right brain, or just kind of more of an overall body kind of space that we inhabit, that is not about the left brain, which is our logical brain, which is very noisy and full of chatter. And so this week is a great time. And in the midst of the holidays, I know it can sound like, wow, that sounds great, but I can't. But you can. You can find ways to say no to extraneous activities. There is the word no. There are moments in your day when you can find a way that you more naturally get in the zone. But it doesn't involve being with another person. This really has to be you kind of going into yourself. And interesting things happen. Like, for example, if I just go walk by myself and I don't have like earbuds in listening to a podcast, that would be something I would do, and stay very tuned out to, what was happening in nature or just the sounds around me. But I'm more likely to be walking around and multitasking. But what happens when I do walk without distraction is an amazing number of aha moments occur. There's this creative force that starts to happen when I'm just walking quietly with no extra distraction. But I also like to meditate. Meditation, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were saying that word meditation can bring up kind of wrong-headed ideas about what meditation is. Just the word itself conjures up somebody sitting cross-legged in a certain position, with their hands. And, if you haven't been initiated into the world of meditation, you may think there is an actual initiation, and there's not. All it is, you could literally, turn off all your instruments, all electronics, and just sit quietly noticing your breath for 1 minute. You don't even have to close your eyes. You could lie down if you want. You could stand on your head and do it. It doesn't matter what position you're in, but it's really just no distraction for some period of time. You can meditate by just noticing your breath for 1 minute. That's all it is. And so the more you can do things that kind of take you into the zone, which meditation does, exercise for some, if it's not filled with a lot of just, extraneous distraction, bits. And some people's gardening or some kind of hobby can take them into this place. So as long as you don't have like the music on, because the music is like this false thing that comes in. I mean, I love listening to music while I'm doing something creative, but to get into the zone I'm talking about, try working creatively without music or listening to the news or talking on the phone, or maybe it's kneading bread is creative for you, making bread, whatever it is, working on your car, but do it without a radio, do it without talking to people, and just notice this different place you go to where a lot bubbles up from inside, like the deep ocean where the North Pole is, where true north is. It's very interesting that true north, what we as humans call true, we decided to call true north as a guiding principle, that it's in a very deep ocean. It's not on land. Despite all the Christmas movies with the little like candy cane pole sticking up, from a landmass where the elves live. is a lovely idea. And there's something metaphorical about that too. It's where magical things happen. It's where yummy things happen, like candy, but it's metaphorical land and metaphorical candy. And it's a magical concept that when we go inward and get into that zone and we're free of distraction and mental clutter, magic can occur. So, no matter where you are in your life right now, this can just understanding this, that it's natural to have these cycles of going inward and cutting out distraction. It's something that we crave. It's a natural thing. We're supposed to go into this cycle to do that. And I think what can really upset people this time of year is in a time when it's good to go inward and it's good to get into this kind of zone that's more spiritual, it's more creative, it's soothing. It's a time when there's a lot of frenzy. There's frenzy at work, approaching the end of the year, sometimes a frenzy in the workplace. There's a frenzy of family and buying presents for some people. And it can feel chaotic. And that means we need this even more. Good morning, Jules. And I see CM says, are breakups that happened in the beginning of the month likely to ever be reversible in the future? Or are these people who need to leave our life forever? Pisces, Sun, I'm assuming this is you, Cancer, Rising, Virgo, Moon. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking a lot about Pisces before I turned on the live stream. I was thinking there's something very Piscean about the North Pole and the idea it's in this deep ocean and the whole idea of going inward. So I think, CM, that the stars tell us, they give us instructions. They don't tell us. I don't think the purpose of astrology is to just tell us like we're robots, like go do this. This is what will happen to you because the planet Saturn, decide I'm going to pick you up from here and move you over here and just do what I say. And astrology is not meant to just write out your script for you. It's meant to be interactive. I've also, because I do listen to podcasts and don't always obey my own advice, and I'll walk or exercise listening to a podcast. I've been listening to The Office Ladies. I think that's what it's called. I don't know if people have watched The Office. It's a great television series that's now over. So now two women who are on it are doing this podcast. If you watch The Office, it's very fun to listen to. But they talk about this mockumentary style that, they used in this comedy series. And what's so nice, what it sounds like, when they talk about it, it sounds like the directors, producers, the writers, they really worked as a team with the actors. And people who've taken my astrology courses know that I use the concept of a play or a movie to describe how astrology works. And so to CM, to your point, you get to decide. And you actually have knowledge inside of you that tells you what you need to do. Breakups are very painful. And there's this desire when something exits your life suddenly to have it back because it just leaves this huge vacuum. And life as you knew it or thought it was going to be is just gone. And that's disorienting for people. And all they want, unless if you're the person who was left or didn't want the breakup, all that person wants is to fill that vacuum again and get that what they thought they had back. It's very instinctual. It's very normal. We develop feelings for people. I don't think love just turns on and off like a light switch. You can love people your whole life, even if you're not together. Just because you still love someone doesn't mean you're supposed to be together. I don't have to really look at your personal chart to know exactly how to guide you, but I would say, on topic with what we're talking about today, with the North Pole and true north, and this idea of the subconscious, unconscious mind that we can tap into. The subconscious, our own true north is not in our left brain. It's not logical. It's something inside of you that's much deeper, like the deep ocean, like Pisces. And you've got this Cancer rising. You've got a lot of water here. So CM, you're very well equipped. And with your Virgo moon, you're very well equipped to do this kind of exercise of, erasing external clutter and noise that, kind of short circuit, like makes your brain go haywire. And then you're just like running in circles because your poor little left brain's just spinning around and doesn't know what to do. So it's time to just take some deep breaths, get out into nature, or do something you really love, and try to get into that flow or that zone when something else takes over. And wisdom will arise from that. We can never force someone else to do what we want to do. They have to be in agreement, and that can happen. But I can't know for sure for you, but, we're talking about true north today, and that's something we find inside. And our planet, the stars, other planets, the moon, everything kind of conspires to help guide us. So we have support. So all of you have support right now, whether it feels like it or not, it's there. And one way to find this support is to learn how to find this thing called true north inside of you. We can look at the map of the stars. We can look at the map of the planets. We can get some direction, but like The Office, just to use a funny example, we interact with those directors. We interact with the producers and the screenwriters as the actors, in our own story. And we can sometimes make up our own lines or decide our own actions and contribute in our own unique personal way to any script that's out there. We get to decide some things about how it goes. They were just talking, of course, I was, instead of finding my own true north this morning, I was listening to it, and they were talking about a scene where Steve Carell, who was first scripted as kind of a hateful guy. He's just not a nice person. He's he's very misogynistic, or seems that way at first. He's bigoted and just shallow and kind of a narcissist. So he as an actor, in this one scene, he decided to cry, and it wasn't scripted. And it changed the whole trajectory. There was a turning point there where the whole plot shifted and the trajectory of the show shifted because he decided to show this human side. And all the other actors kind of followed it and they all came from a more genuine place in this one scene that turned the trajectory of his whole character trajectory and how he was perceived and received by others. And this can happen with you, CM, with you, Jules, with anybody listening. I see people here, but for anybody watching this, you, in these tiny micro moments, where you're really connecting to your humanity, your most authentic self, to your soul, your spirit, in these little micro moments when you find this connection, which is much easier to do when you erase the noise, you can change the trajectory of your life in these tiny little moments. So this is a good week to be thinking about this and to remember this, that if life isn't looking too good, or if you're sad, or if you just want to create some change, maybe you're not that sad, but you just want to create some change in your life or just connect to yourself, you have so much power in these tiny little moments to change everything. So have a wonderful week. Happy solstice. Take care.